Welcome, everyone, to the Information Playground. I'm Ron Bush with Ron Bush Consulting, and we underwrite the Information Playground. I hope you're joining us if you're in Northwest Indiana through WVLP. That's 103.1 on your FM dial, and they're a great radio station in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you're not, if you're listening to us on demand, you can catch us on any of the podcast platforms that I'm familiar with. There's 8 or 9 of them under the Information Playground. There are shows with other titles, similar titles. So remember to get all 3 words. Or YouTube, you can watch us on the Information Playground. We're a cybersecurity company, Ron Bush Consulting is, and we help companies protect themselves against cyber criminals. The Information Playground is a program that's devoted to help you, the listener or viewer, learn how to protect yourself, but also things that are going on in technology and the world at large. You'll hear us talk about different things from COVID-19 to, to cybercrime and other things of that nature. If you're on Amazon, check out my book, Staying Safe in a Very Dangerous World. The subtitle is Think Before You Click, not click before you think. That's the problem. And on to today's program, my good friend, John Lohrentz. John, welcome to the program. You're a regular guest, and it's good to see you.
Hi, how you doing? Everything's good over here. I hope everything's good with you, Ron.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, things are going well. So if you would, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you do, and we'll get started on the program.
Sure. My name's John Lohrentz. I'm a civilian digital forensics analyst for Munster Police Department and intelligence analyst. A lot of my duties range from doing anything with mobile devices to doing reports on different subject matter. One being COVID-19, trying to keep everybody in the know currently with all the changes and everything, especially with all the government changes and everything like that that's going on. I also teach digital forensics at Ivy Tech and at Moraine Valley.
Great. I appreciate your daily updates with NISA. And you'll have to remind folks what that is. I get lost in the double I's and the double S's, but
absolutely. So NISA is Northwest Indiana Information Sharing and Security Alliance. We have a webpage that's probably about a week out of date. The webpage is NISA, NIISSA.org, and basically, we repost there information that I send out to our NISA partners about different things, including our COVID-19 report.
And we're still on Governor Holcomb's council as well. You might want to mention that and explain to folks and actually tell folks where they can go if they want to take a look at that as well, if you would.
Oh, yeah, sure. So Ron and I were asked to join a committee about 2 years now.
Yeah, I think it might be longer than that.
Might even be longer than that. Governor Holcomb wanted to make Indiana as cyber secure as possible, but realized there's a lot of pitfalls in order to accomplish it. So a lot of different people from many different industries came together to try to solve that problem in many different ways. A lot of people at Ivy Tech were asked about doing education, how to educate people. I was asked to come in because I work with municipality, and we basically talk to people from Munster, as well as how we can help educate or what we can do to make Indiana a little more cyber aware, if you may. They built a website. I believe it's oh, brain freeze. I think it was, isn't it something like cyber, uh, cyber force? No, I
If
don't know
you,
what the,
folks, neither one of us have us ready. My fault for bringing it up. But if you Google cybersecurity in Indiana, it will come up, or Google Governor Holcomb and cybersecurity, it'll come up. And it's an excellent website. I'm sorry for not having it ready.
is called in.gov. I don't know why I didn't think that. in.gov slash cybersecurity.
Great.
And it's basically talking about how we are working with everybody, and that we have a cyber convention, which was canceled this year because of COVID, unfortunately. And I think it's scheduled for, I don't know if it's June or July of 21.
Yeah, I think that company did something online um, close to when it was supposed to be. It was in July sometime. I forget,
Yeah,
15th
yeah.
or 16th instead of the
But
4th.
it's fantastic. They have a lot of different people. They even get people talking about cyber insurance, you know, especially in these times, and clarification is always necessary because just like when I remember when auto insurance wasn't a requirement in order to drive, and people were always like, oh, well, what does this auto insurance cover and everything like that. Well, guess what? Cyber insurance is now that the new, what does this cover?
Yeah.
And they did a whole panel, you know, explaining, you know, what to buy and everything like that, or what you need to cover for certain things, as well as education and other topics like that.
That's excellent. Cyber, just read an article about a month and a half ago on cyber insurance, and cyber insurance companies are losing money. Now, this is opposed to what I just read today, that health insurance companies are making money because your elective surgeries aren't being done, so they're not paying out like they would be under normal circumstances because of COVID-19. But cyber crime is way up. And even though cyber insurance companies have gotten more controlled over what they will pay on, and you really have to check your policy close and obey all the codes within that policy. Uh, but even with the controls they've adopted for paying out, they're still paying out more than they intended to. So we'll probably see a rise in insurance rates for cyber insurance for that reason. Cybercrime is just literally off the charts, and COVID-19 has spawned a whole group of people, as we've talked about before, that have developed websites either to scam your money or to spoof charities and have you pay them instead of the charities, or to help with they've even spoofed CDC and WHO, WHO, World Health Organization. So cyber criminals are hard at work through this and making as much money as they can.
Yeah, one thing that's, it seems to be kind of a big story, if people know how to prevent it, or how to derail the process,
Mm-hmm.
if you may. I think I read it was 100,000 people in Illinois had fraudulent unemployment forms filled out where they received uh, like debit cards on how they would receive the money. And of that, what they usually do is that gets sent, the person just throws it away. The person then calls up and says, hey, you know, I moved, you know, can you send it to this new address? And then they start collecting the money. And then when they realize it's fraudulent, the it goes back on to the person whose identity was stolen.
Yeah.
So I knew somebody that this happened to, and happened to their sister as well. And I'm like, you got to call in, we're going to do a police report, and go from there to start the process rolling. And you have to, it took uh, Illinois Department 2 weeks to call her back. And every time when they would call in, they would say, you're in the queue because we have so many people. They only have like a few, however many employees to call 100,000 people. So before you contact them, you can put a stop on the debit card. You could close the account, and that's the beginning process of it. And when they put the stop on it, that means no one could call up and say, I'm you, I move, transfer it to this account, or this address. They can't do it. They'll realize then that it's someone trying to call back in for fraud, to fraud on the account. And then once IDES calls you back, they finalize the process of canceling it and stuff like that. It's been on the news every day. Someone keeps calling in, who been working for 30 years, how do they not realize, that I'm working, and they're sending me unemployment stuff. I think that just goes to show the fault in the system, that they just send it out blindly. They don't even, look to say, hey, this person's getting Social Security, and had a paycheck just, in this time period where they applied. And then those people, it gets held against them, regardless if they did it or not, or even try to bluff the system for their own good. It prevents them from getting the stimulus checks. And I guess if the second stimulus check comes out.
Yeah.
So I try to make sure that they're safe, that their identity wasn't, properly taken, and that they're did everything in their power to, stop it.
Mm-hmm. So you made me recall in taking our conversation this direction that there's an excellent book called Swiped by Adam Levine. It's been out a few years. There may be an update available, but some great information on what to do if your Social Security is hijacked. Different things that you can do to protect yourself. It's an excellent book, but just off the cuff, let's talk about some things that people can do to protect themselves in the event some of the situation that you're just talking about occurs. Let's say that your unemployment check is hijacked. What do you do? If your identity is stolen, what do you do? Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. So if somebody is depositing, that unemployment check, there's not a whole lot you could do other than trying to stop the card, and it's on your name. You have to make sure one that you got the police report, from the day it happened, or at least the day you were notified that something was sent to you, that and the unemployment process had started for you, all the way to the point where you're submitting that to the state, the police report showing, hey, I did not do this. This is what I had, regardless if I wouldn't even cut up the card. Like I have in my little vault, all my expired credit cards and everything like that. A company I used to work for, where I had a company car, I still get gas cards that I could go and use. And I'm like, oh, that would be fraud. They would come after me. Why do they keep sending me gas cards? I don't know why. I haven't worked there in, 15 years.
Oh my
but
God.
I still get them. It expires and I get it. Fleet doesn't and it was a fleet vehicle, so fleet doesn't even check if you're at the address, anything like that. So it could go back to 2 addresses, ago, and hopefully no one's using the card. And so I tried to cancel it. I tried canceling it a number of times, and doesn't work. I don't know why. You think that they would be, I don't know, more professional or something, have some kind of safety precaution, you know, in it. And I think that's part of the pitfalls that Illinois is finding with this, that they're just sending out the cards blindly, especially with the amount of unemployment. So when you hear on the news, there was, 50,000 new unemployment, claims, how many were false?
Yeah.
If they said there were 100,000 that people reported, and it takes forever to close it out, are we really having that many unemployment claims?
Yeah. I heard on it's timely conversation on this morning's news. I heard that it's a nationwide catastrophe. Millions of unemployment checks have been mailed out to the wrong people, or people who are not unemployed, people who have stolen identities. And regarding that fleet company you were talking about, I sometimes wonder why more companies don't go bankrupt than do, which I'm sure there'll be a host of them after COVID-19 is over that have gone bankrupt because of the economy and what have you. But large companies like that, just things fall through the cracks. And you've said you've tried several times to stop the cards from coming. It's a good thing you're honest. Not everyone that has that happen will be.
Oh yeah.
How many of those are continuing to use those cards? It's
Yeah, the other thing you need to watch, and I know, like, with the whole Equifax and everything like that, I do truly believe in cases of identity theft that you should have a report put out so you can make sure, people aren't buying cars under your name, or doing other different types of credit liens, or cash, against your, you know one of the other things you could do, besides Equifax, there's a lot of different ways you could go just to make sure, check your credit score, every so often. But for people that had this, I think that they should be doing it more often, because clearly they had her name, they had her address, they had enough information to fill out the form. It might even be your social security number. I think to fill it out, and that means they were hacked from another site. And it's funny when, relating this to something we were talking about before, was Capital One. Both these people had a Capital One account. So was their information taken from that and used in identity theft to create, this mess that we're dealing with now?
Yeah.
What's the odds?
Yeah, you mentioned Capital One. They were fined $80 million today for that data breach. It's the largest of its kind on record for 2019, and compromised about 140,000 social security numbers and 80,000 bank account numbers. I wonder if they charged them 80, appropriately according to how many bank accounts. So let's talk a little bit. How many ways can you be compromised? I'm just thinking as you were talking, we need to, let's say that you need to contact the 3 credit bureaus. It isn't just Equifax, which is my least favorite of the 3.
Yes.
Experian, which is probably the largest of the 3, and TransUnion, which is probably the smallest and my favorite to deal with. I don't like any of them, but if you got to deal with one, TransUnion is usually easier to talk to and get a hold of and work through All three improved their websites so that you can actually freeze your credit, which I encourage everyone to do. I can tell you right now, it's a pain in the neck, especially when you go to get a loan or credit card or buy a car or anything else. You've got to unfreeze your credit, and you've got to do it with all three of them, not just one of them. It has gotten easier over the years, but it still has a way to go before you can call it convenient. But credit bureaus, if you find that you're compromised in any way, by all means, let the three credit bureaus know. If it's a credit card, if it's your bank account, if it's anything like that, you want to change all of your passwords. If you do anything online, and most people today do most or all of their banking online, including paying their credit cards. If you do that, you have the ability on most credit card accounts to freeze that account just without talking to anyone. It's an option on the websites. If it's not, you can do that by, of course, talking to someone. But the first thing you want to do is your credit card company, change your password so that whoever's compromised that can't keep getting in. Use multi-factor or two-factor authentication, whichever they offer, because it will require usually something coming to your phone or using an app on your phone that now allows you and you alone to get in. And yes, that can be compromised too. Let me just say up front, there isn't anything you can do that somebody else that's got nefarious plans hasn't already figured out how to compromise. There just isn't. But if you don't do anything, then you're at the mercy of everybody. Any script kiddie or noob out in the dark web can compromise you. So you take these steps accordingly. Change all your passwords on all your credit cards. Call all your credit cards. Tell them how you've been compromised. Ask for new credit cards. Most of them won't blink. They'll just send you a new credit card with a new number and everything else. Use there's quite a few of them. It used to be LifeLock was the only uh, service you could get that would monitor your credit and things for you. Experian does it. There's ID something. ID, don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Uh, oh, not ID theft. Oh, I can't even think of it now.
Yeah, there's ID Shield maybe. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's many of them around. Experian claims to have a good. Discover, who I think uses Experian in some way. They offer some sort of monitoring. So there's plenty of places to go. On your checking account, call your bank and tell them you've been compromised. You want a new checking account number. And yes, that'll cause you to have new checks printed if you still use checks. A lot of people don't. If you do everything online, it isn't necessary, but you'll have
Check
to do that.
checks are only for one thing, to set up a direct deposit. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the only
That's
reason
right.
why checks are needed. But yeah,
So,
no, I agree with a lot of that. Oh, and one of the problems were the credit card companies tried to somehow come up with a way to protect users from the credit cards being used or stolen or anything like that. And that chip that they added to it, it really wasn't that um, uh, of a game changer in all things, because the card can still be cloned without a chip. And if you don't know this, if you have a chip and you always have to insert it, well, say your chip goes bad,
mhm.
what do you do with the card? Well, all you have to do is swipe it twice and it works. So the first time doesn't work to make you insert it in, but if you swipe it twice, it works on every card. And because of that, that's why in a couple of years I used to work for a ATM company repairing them and stuff like that. So I've seen all different kinds of fraud from before, when you had the envelope, people would just put fake, pieces of paper in there the size of a check, pretend that they're depositing so much they can't see it, and get 10% right then and there. Now, you know, that's not the best way for your credit. Clearly these people that are doing it eventually will get caught.
Mhm.
you know, to people printing their own checks. You know, they receive a check from somebody, they make a fake check with that routing number, and try to, deposit it, and then try to take it out quickly.
Yeah.
Some banks, it takes several days for them to detect it, but then once they detect it, it's on their radar. So maybe, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, no, we figured it out. You know, so uh, they're eventually going to be going to getting rid of cards. And then it will be all on your cell phone by using a QR code that you will put up to the screen for it. You know, I don't use cash all that much. There's certain things, that they only require me to have cash. I only want to use cash at drive ups because I'm not giving someone my credit card, debit card.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of stories out there. You could see them how people at drive through windows, they have a little credit card reader. They swipe it, take it, recreate the card, and start spending. You know, uh, and they've always been caught. It even happened in our town. Um, it happens all over, but um, you'll be using, you know, your phone for everything.
Hmm.
I guess you're not going to hand your phone to somebody. You'll just be tapping it, just like the Apple Pay. There's a lot of things that I think that improved on that. Um, but like you said, if someone wants to commit, identity theft on somebody, they're gonna go and do it. I know we talked about it before, but there's a TV show called Vice, and the very first episode on Showtime, it showed how kids were hacking other people's phones and the type of damage that they could do to the person through identity theft through that way. And they eventually were caught, but the money still wasn't recovered because they moved the money to Bitcoin. You know, they don't know where the Bitcoin is, and once they get out of jail or have whatever kind of fine, they're still going to have some of these people's money.
Yeah. 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 A couple of things. You mentioned that, something? I just went blank. So let me take this opportunity to pause and identify once again who you're listening to and where you can find us. The Information Playground is a program dedicated to technology and for people to keep up with it. Also to kind of keep up with the headlines of today. We're getting more of that in because of COVID-19, I suppose. But there's just an awful lot happening in the world. It's hard to keep up with it. So hopefully we'll say some things that you haven't heard before, and you'll learn from it, or they'll be valuable or edifying to you in some way. It's underwritten by Ron Bush. Ron Bush Consulting is a cybersecurity company, and we help our clients protect themselves against cyber crime. Now, you may have heard me mention before that nobody's hack proof, and that's true of everyone. The NSA gets hacked. Other prime organizations, especially government organizations, get hacked. There is no one that is hack proof, but there are many things you can do to protect yourself, and I hope that's what you glean from this program, this broadcast, and all of them. I hope that comes through for you. You can find us on WVLP. I started with WVLP years ago, and they're an excellent community radio station. And I really hope that if you're in that community, you get involved with them because they do a lot for the community. Also, you can find us on any of the podcast platforms that I'm familiar with, which is 8 or 9 of them. Start with Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and the rest. Or you can find us on YouTube, all under the Information Playground. Our guest today is John Lohrentz. John wears quite a few hats. He's with the Munster Police Department, but he teaches at Ivy Tech. Is it DeVry is the other one?
Moraine Valley.
I beg your pardon, Marine Valley. But he does a little bit of everything. He's heads up NISA and is just a great guy and a great person to know. If folks have questions for you, John, how can they get a hold of you?
They can email me at the police department. My email address is jlohrentz@munster.org.
Great. And if you have questions for me, Ron at ronbushconsulting.com. I have to encourage folks to pick up my book. It's Staying Safe in a Very Dangerous World, and the subtitle is Think Before You Click, which brings us back to how these things happen and what we can do to ourselves or to protect ourselves. So sometimes it's nothing of our own doing. A company gets hacked and they get our information that way, and we're bought and sold on the dark web. And unbeknownst to us, we wind up getting our identity stolen or our credit cards stolen. Sometimes it's our title to our homes or even cars. They get stolen. We can there's just really about anything we can own somebody can take from us. How do we defend ourselves? Well, we talked a little bit about talking to your bank, your credit cards, telling them what happened, using credit monitoring services like LifeLock. What else can we do?
Well, one, I think the way that we look at it at the police department, or as the detectives might, would be how to eliminate yourself as a target. You know, we get several elderly people in every month, saying that, someone's taking money from their checking account and everything like that. And it's usually a healthcare worker that took a check or then starts, duplicating the check. No different than your child. He could be on Xbox and PlayStation like they all are now. Mm-hmm. And someone creates an account under that person's name and starts making credit cards, getting credit card applications to them, for a 5-year-old. My father, God rest his soul, when he was 9 years old, he started getting Social Security because both his parents passed away. So when he retired and started getting Social Security, the sheriff showed up at his house going, "How are you getting Social Security when you got it back in 1975?"
Yeah.
And they didn't have paperwork. You actually get to see, like, they just have a note saying receive Social Security for this amount of years. Doesn't show that he was deceased, doesn't show his name, or I'm sorry, doesn't show his age, or anything beyond that. Just that then again he pops up receiving Social Security.
Right.
A lot of that happens with kids, and it happens from social media. Mm-hmm. I think social media, as much as people are using it in times of COVID for all different kinds of things, it's the best place that someone's going to try to collect your data. And you can see that, like, Facebook's always, a big target, but, other different formats have been attacked, especially, they realize that kids don't have, the money, so they're looking for businesses. So now you're looking at social media accounts for companies or anything like that, and they try to get information from them. So now, okay, well, we found a CEO of a company. Now, what other social media accounts do they have? Mm-hmm. And then they try to tunnel down. I don't know how many times I've said it. I have basically dropped or stopped using any types of social media. I have no desire to put it out there. If I'm communicating with somebody, I talk to them on the phone, or see them in person. If I'm sharing photos or anything like that, I have no desire, of putting anything out there. Um, but that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things, and I actually thought of where I was going to go before. So uh, let's go back to credit cards for just a moment.
Yeah, sure.
Um, the magnetic strip. The idea was over in Europe when they installed the chip, the magnetic strip, which there you can skim, a card skimmer. You walk by a card skimmer in a mall, airport, any public place is an easy way to find them. Um, you'll see a guy sitting on a bench and he'll have a briefcase, and in the briefcase, or it could be a lady, she in her purse, she'll have a card skimmer. You walk by and it skims your credit card. It can read the magnetic strip off that credit card. The idea for the chip was to get away from the magnetic strip, but here in America, we didn't do that. We didn't, and we're just now getting to the point where people can hold their credit cards with the chip and have the gas pump or whatever it is, the um,
At McDonald's, Apple
yeah.
Pay, and everything like that. And that's part of the problem too, because your card basically is constantly sending out a signal.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be, however far away. So a lot of people will put a device that can actually accept that
Mm-hmm.
and scan it without ever touching the card.
Yeah.
So people have their wallets, or the ladies have their purses at their shoulder. They have the device at shoulder length, and you walk by people, say, at a bar or a winery, where you're doing tastings, and you just are picking up people's credit cards.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people still have RFID protection wallets, or, back in the day when there were clips on clothing, people would put it in an aluminum pouch, like aluminum foil pouch, to keep the sensors from being detected. Well, that's basically what your wallets are doing, or trying to protect that. And I was kind of skeptical, because some of these RFID wallets, there's gaps, or it looks like there's gaps, but it covered just the chip. If you put the card in just right, it covers just the chip.
Mm-hmm.
There was when the chips first came out, there was several articles about people, say if it was Chase, you could go online and see how you could disable that chip by putting a pinhole through the card.
Right.
Well, supposedly the rumor was that Chase would know you're not scanning your card and send you out a new one. So it leads me to believe that that's probably not true, because you could still run the card, by swiping it through,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not reading. No different than, what do you do with a magnetic strip at home? You
Mm-hmm.
don't swipe a card at home. You use PayPal, you use, whatever kind of Amazon, and you're just putting in the data. You're just putting it in. There's no swipe, no nothing. So
So
they don't know.
no. So
I'm
we
not
go.
saying to go around and destroy all your cards, but yeah, no, they realized that the RFID was a not as secure as they liked it to be.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to come out with something better.
Well, the problem is they'll test it in Europe. The crime families will find a way around it to compromise it, and then they'll ship it over here. That's how
Oh,
it's worked in the past.
of course, just like with the skimmers on ATM machines and everything like that.
That's still big business. So let's talk about that. Going into getting your gas at a filling station, or going into a 7-Eleven ATM, any ATM, even at your bank. you've always got to be careful. And what do you look for?
Well, first, I always look to make sure there's not something that looks like it's been added to the slot where you put the card in,
Mhm.
or that there's not a camera that isn't built into the ATM,
Mhm.
so that it could grab your PIN number or anything like that. We saw a lot of scammers when I was working for the ATM company. They would actually try to glue or attach it so that they could grab several cards and come back and get it. Um, the the hope was that your bank company would be monitoring these.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes they're just recording and they have to go back and look at them. They don't have enough people to monitor every transaction to see, if they're attaching something. Um, but they've gotten a lot better from looking out completely obvious to small and minute. Some people, I guess, on the dark web, through different gas stations, you could get a gas station key that opens up the gas pump, and they would put the skimmer on the inside, so you can't even trust, you know, using it, and if they gather your credit card information or not.
Mhm.
Um, there was a few stories over in Illinois where that was the case, and they were catching them at gas pumps. So then they started watching for them. I'm sure it's popping up other places, or still doing that. They just have to, change the locks, come up with a better system. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Then you
But
got to,
but like you said, if someone wants to figure out how to steal something or to get that data, they're going to keep trying until they're successful.
yeah.
And the only thing we could do is just put up more roadblocks to try to prevent it.
So we leave the signal of the credit card. And by the way, thank you for bringing up the RFID wallets. There's plenty of them on the market, and I encourage all our viewers and listeners to pick those up, whether you're male or female. There's some nice looking purses, and there's well, I have one, but I just carry a black wallet, traditional black wallet, so I don't care about style. But some folks do. I don't flash my wallet, so nobody needs to know what it looks like anyway. So, but but let's leave the credit card for a minute and let's go to the phones because that's where things seem to be going with Apple Pay. I don't know what else there is out there. You can probably run through
Android,
them, but
yeah.
your phone is one of the leakiest things on the planet. You got Bluetooth, you've got Wi-Fi. It's broadcasting all the time too. How do we protect ourselves there?
Well, the worst of it that you didn't mention is just the hotspot. Some
Yeah.
people create a hotspot at, say, their favorite wing place,
Hmm.
and because they want to check stuff, and they're not getting signal, because you're in the middle of a big place, they have all kinds of wires going around, so they create a hotspot. And if they're not careful, or if you're not sure what you're doing, people could hop on that hotspot and are now part of your network.
Yeah.
So just like any network, anything that's on a network can communicate, and unlike servers and firewalls and stuff like that, do you have any kind of protection on your phone that prevents somebody from logging into your phone or anything like that? There's apps out there, but are you using them? Are you, do you use a VPN, which we've talked about many times?
Virtual private network. Yes, sir.
Correct. And I'm convinced that everybody should be using a VPN
Yeah,
on their
I
phone,
agree.
especially when you're jumping on mysterious Wi-Fi's everywhere because you don't want to use your data plan, and you're out at a McDonald's, and who knows that's on, that free Wi-Fi.
That's
You
right.
know, a lot of towns, like when you go to their government center, they offer free Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
And who knows it's on it? Your Starbucks, everything like that.
And regardless of who it is, whether it's a government entity or it's McDonald's or anyone else, in fact, I don't know of any exception to this. I'm sure there are, but no one seems to give attention to that. So there's no, if it's a password, it's either the name of the place, or it's let me in, or password 123. It's some rinky-dink password. So anybody can own that. The guy sitting in his car at the curb can own that Wi-Fi. The guy sitting inside, let's say it's one of the more popular coffee places, or you mentioned the hamburger place, any place that offers free Wi-Fi, regardless of what it is, somebody can own that. And if you join that, they now own you too.
Oh
So,
yeah. And like I was getting my oil changed.
mhm,
While I was sitting there getting my oil changed, there's a sign posted for everyone to see, free Wi-Fi. Here's the SSID,
yeah,
here's the password. And
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I'm not jumping on that. I mean, everybody sees it. You don't even have
yeah,
to know that it's here.
no.
But yeah, yeah,
So,
it's
so to guard yourself, never use public Wi-Fi. When you're out, turn off if you're not at home, you're not in the office, what do you need your Wi-Fi turned on your phone for? If you're not going to use public Wi-Fi, and I hope you don't, turn it off. Bluetooth, well, that's harder to remember because in our cars we use Bluetooth. We use Bluetooth so we can talk on the phone and drive at the same time. But
but
when
there's a lot of hacks that when Bluetooth first came out,
Mhm.
people were using to gain access to different computers and stuff like that, because laptops would use Bluetooth to communicate to servers, print servers, or anything like that.
That's
And
right.
usually they would try to use that to gain access. Once they got a little bit of access, then they could try to make their way through the network. You know, depending on how secure you were, you know, might be how difficult it is. Maybe they lose interest, or, you know, maybe they keep trying, you know.
Well, I hate to say this, but we're just about out of time. I I was enjoying our conversation so much that I kind of lost track of it. So let's think
There's
about.
always there's always next time, Ron.
There you go. There you go. Let's think about how we can sum this up. What is it that people can do to protect themselves? Contact their banks, their credit card companies, um, the credit bureau.
Get a police report just to cover yourself, just so that you could show everything that's going on, and because we've seen a lot of identity thefts where people could say that's not me,
Mhm.
and they can't prove it,
Yeah.
you know, and some are out a lot of money, you know. So as soon as anything happens, you want to make sure that the account is not just frozen but closed, and go from there.
Talk to your insurance company, whether you're an individual or you're a business, you definitely need to have cyber insurance coverage. Find out what you do have. Whether you're an individual, what do you have? What happens if somebody does steal your identity? Does your insurance policy cover you? Is there a rider you can put on there? So just everything's different and everything's kind of free flowing right now. So the only person who can answer your questions is your insurance agent. Find out what you have, find out what's available and what you can afford. Um, we talked about uh, we talked about credit cards. We talked about phones.
Checking your credit. Make sure, you know, if you you know, suspect anything going on, make sure you check your credit. And you know, you may want to put a notification that if your cards are used, or if someone tries to use your card, you could be notified that, hey, someone in Montana is trying to use my Visa card.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not in Montana, you know. That's a great way. It's almost I almost think of it as like a dual factor authentication, because nobody checks for signatures anymore at any of the big stores. Signatures used to be the way to do it, or someone would write on there, ask for ID, you
Mhm.
know, instead of it. But you don't hand your credit card to anybody anymore, especially in COVID. You just scan it right there.
Yeah.
So if someone's trying to do it, it bypasses one whole, you know, point of security.
Well said. Anything else? Any final thoughts? Any last minute things we haven't we should have talked about and we didn't get to? We've got 2 minutes.
Um, I would just say you might want to do research, especially if you're a parent. You know how to keep your child safe so that he's not um, a victim at such a young age, because that will follow him going forward.
Yes. Child identity theft is often happens to kids. They don't find out about it till they get ready to get a student loan for college
Yep.
and find out that their credit is ruined.
Yep.
Uh, it's um, it's definitely something. And as a parent, this will make you, because you don't want to look like an idiot in front of your kids, this will make you research it and get better at protecting yourself as well. So I encourage that. And if your child doesn't learn from you, who are they going to learn from? Well,
Exactly.
they can trust you. I don't know who else they can trust. So with that, I want to thank you, John, for being on the program. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, and I will be back anytime you need me.
Oh, I appreciate that. Folks can reach you at
Munster at my email address is jlohrentz@munster.org. And I could always, give you some advice or help you out.
excellent. And I'm Ron at ronbushconsulting.com. If you have questions on the program or would like to underwrite the program at WVLP, it's info at WVLP.org. Greg Kovich is a really nice guy, and he's the station manager. Give him a call, check him out on the web, see if there's a way for you to get involved with them. They're a very fine radio station and a good group of people. So with that, thank you. All the best to you, John, and stay safe and healthy, and the same to you, our listeners and viewers.
You do the same, Ron.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.